welcome to Apollo City Comics. I'm Brandon.
I'm David.
And here we are. The end of a road.
Yeah,
a
man.
year journey. When did our last Watchmen episode come out?
Came out December 13th. I was listening to it. I was refreshing what we said in our old conversation. And then in that episode, you say, Doomsday Clock has been going on since November last year.
Yeah.
So it's a little over 2 years.
And 4 issues came out this year.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before this thing. Since our last podcast episode a year ago, the final 4 issues have come out. Like literally just come out.
And a year ago, they announced they'd be bi-monthly. So it should have ended 6 months ago.
Yeah, but whatever.
But hey, we made it. We're at the end
it.
of the road. We just finished reading issue 12 essentially together right now.
Yeah.
And recapping this 2-year journey because I didn't remember what was going on.
I forgot a lot of it.
Yeah.
I had forgotten quite a bit of the detail. There were some scenes that really stuck out to me.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But you know what? We'll just kind of clarify this. If you are jumping into Doomsday Clock, if you're trying to jump into our conversation about it and you haven't heard any of it, we're not going to really go through detailed discussion of the older issues just because we've already done it.
Yeah.
And if you want to listen to that, which is issues 1 through 8 of this 12 issue series, you got to listen to Watchmen Part 3, the prequels and sequels. It's our 4th podcast on our channel.
And just skip through all the before Watchmen
I was about to say,
just skip through all that.
Just skip through all the before Watchmen stuff, unless you want to hear us just rant about how terrible it is. It's about halfway through the episode, actually. I did that when I was listening to it. I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to listen to the before Watchmen part. I'm just going to skip this.
Yeah, I didn't even bother. Yeah, and it just fills me with anger still.
Yeah, I'm upset about it.
But you know what? Again, I'll touch up on this. But I said it so many times. I was going through all my comic book boxes about a week ago, and I saw my Before Watchmen stuff, and those covers are so good.
Yeah, there's some that are really nice. I like the Silk Spectre ones in particular.
Oh, yeah.
All those really 1960s thing.
I love the Kubert Night Owl ones.
I really don't like the comedian ones.
I don't remember those off the top of my head.
I mean, because they're bland.
There you go.
And that book's bad. That's one of the worst ones. Oh, jeez.
Well, the dollar bill one was still the worst, but I could rant about this all day.
And we already have. So maybe listen to the whole episode. It might be worth a laugh.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to be jumping into issue 9. And just as a little refresher, issue 8, when we left our last episode off, left on such a cliffhanger of Superman exploding maybe with Firestorm and that giant blue energy light.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Batman getting injured his ship got affected from
he crashed landed. He crashed
later,
and everything. Yeah.
And then issue 9 picks up with something completely different. It's let me see here. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of 10. In 9 we have Superman injured and unconscious from the explosion. And we find out that Firestorm is an agent for the government when we talk about the Superman theory.
Yep.
And this goes back to one of the major conflicts of the book, that 97% of metahumans are from the United States. And these people think that the government is manufacturing metahumans, kind of something straight out of The Boys, like the Amazon show or comic book.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that they're right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Firestorm was kind of being used. We discover that Firestorm, he has the professor living inside his head. And it turns out the professor was in cahoots with the government.
Yep.
And saying, I'm going to combine myself with this kid because how are we going to learn more about metahumans than being on the inside?
Yeah.
Which was a messed up move, man.
That's such a jerk.
And that's one part of the story. We also have the DC universe battling Dr. Manhattan.
Yes, that's what this issue is about.
And it's also something that's super similar to the Thanos fight in Infinity Gauntlet.
It's
so similar.
Totally right.
They go through space. They land on his base on some other off-world place. They don't know what they're getting themselves into.
And they
get wiped out.
Yeah.
And Dr. Manhattan's just toying with him. He's I don't know which Green Lantern. I don't know enough about Green Lantern to know which one's which. Like the cocky one, I guess.
Oh, Guy Gardner. Yeah.
There we go. He he's trying to attack Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan's not even worried about his attack. He's just like, oh, this ring is interesting.
And it's cool because the ring, it still affects him.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's willpower.
Maybe
And
some kind of magical
John,
property.
the way he operates, he's like not somebody that works off of will.
Oh,
You
that's
know what I
true.
mean?
It's like
It's an emotion, and John is emotionless.
yeah, it's something unknown
So,
to him. He's like, what?
Yeah. Um, I think the. Oh, go on. Never mind. I'm gonna say this
Well,
once we get to 12.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get there then. Yeah. I thought the battle was fun. It's a cool issue.
It's a cool. I love seeing. Gary Frank is a great illustrator.
Hmm.
And the artwork in this book is amazing. And I think
Yeah.
just seeing all the DC characters, what's cool is that you kind of see the teams panel by panel. You see the Doom Patrol, and then you have Blue Beetle, the Atom, and the Question. And I love the dialogue on that. Somebody, I have no idea who this character is, where they say, "How much longer?" And the question's like, "Good question." And I'm like,
That's
yeah, it's like a little corny thing. But you have the Shazam family and stuff like that, and they're all flying towards space. Oh, Justice League Dark too, which I thought that was cool. You have Swamp Thing, Santana, Constantine, Deadman, cool stuff. Like it's cool seeing all these characters at once.
We talked about this a little bit before getting into it, but it's not even in this issue. It's been pretty constant ever since we had that grouping of like the DC supervillains when the comedians started shooting everybody.
Yeah.
This book's just filled with like so much DC fan service.
Oh, so much.
I mean, I don't read enough DC to know if this is how all of these are. Like whenever they have some kind of gathering, like some sort of crossover event.
It's funny because issue 9 is called Crisis, but really when they do these crisis events, that's when you see every member of the DC universe.
Jeez, there's so many people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the cover of Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Alex Ross cover, he has everyone. And actually, I heard that in Crisis on Infinite Earths, which would be a cool book for us to read, honestly. It's the first like multiverse big crossover thing.
And they talked about that a little bit in Doomsday Clock.
Yeah, in issue 12. They draw every character in the DCU except for Hal Jordan Green Lantern. I want to say that's what George Perez said.
That's weird.
Yeah. But it's kind of cool at
He
the same
seems
time.
like-
You know what I mean? Like,
Pretty important guy. Poor dude.
I think
Poor Hal Jordan.
it's because I want to say he was dead at the time because the Parallax stuff. It was. No, that was after. I have no idea why then.
There's
He was in
being mean.
space.
Quick tangent.
Oh, I have a lot of tangents. Go on.
Crisis on Infinite Earth just happened on Flash, right?
Oh, yeah, it's the
There-
CW stuff.
The CW stuff, yeah. And it was all over social media, like, oh, Brandon Routh's going to be Superman. And like,
the Kingdom Come Superman.
yeah. And
have you read Kingdom Come?
no, I haven't.
Ooh.
And then also it was like, oh, Tom Welling is going to be back. Is Clark Kent and everything.
Kevin
And
Conroy is
Kevin
gonna
Conroy's
be back.
live action Batman.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa. So I was telling Michelle, I was so excited. I was like, Kevin Conroy is going to be like the first guy to go from being the voice actor to being like the character. And everyone's always like ranking Batmans, and he's always kind of like a weird one. Like, well, he's not really, but now it's like Kevin Conroy was Batman.
Yeah. So
That's
now he's the
super
best
exciting.
Batman.
Yeah, now he's hands down the best Batman.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was like, Kevin Conroy. I like forgot for a second. I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Oh, you're not
people-
Brandon.
Yeah, I'm telling it's the wrong person. You know what I mean? And then I looked up some YouTube clips. I was like, oh, I got to show you Batman. You know what I mean? And then the clips from the Flashpoint episode showed up. Like all of Kevin Conroy's Crisis on Infinite Earth scenes. And I was like, well, I'm never going to watch the show. Let's watch this.
Yeah.
So I watched it, and man, that show's terrible.
Oh, so bad.
I'm like,
All of them are.
how do people even watch this?
How are they 8 seasons? That's the thing. I really want to watch some of these crossovers and see some of these key episodes and stuff. But man, dude, it's so CW-y. That's the thing.
It's gross.
Yeah.
And I've had people who've legitimately been like, you need to watch The Flash. It's really good.
The first 2 seasons are worth watching.
Well, I'll have to check it out, man. But
Season 2 is pretty cool.
I watched all of that. And then I got just on a kick. I was like, I can't believe how bad this is.
Oh yeah.
And then I watched the Brandon Routh scene. I watched the Tom Welling scene. I just went through them, and I was like, oh my god! The
I
special
didn't see the
effects are
Tom
one
Welling
thing.
Did you watch Smallville?
I watched the first 2 seasons of Smallville.
Is it worth it?
It's very CW.
Oh. See, that's why I can't do some of these shows.
Yeah.
It's not.
And I dropped out. My brother has always been a hardcore Smallville fan.
Yeah.
And it was a way bigger comic book fan than I was. You know what I mean? And he watched the whole thing all the way from top to bottom. You know
I
what
have,
mean?
yeah, I know people who have, and they loved it.
They loved it, but I just can't get behind the production value. That's the problem.
I know.
It's like when people recommend a band to me, and I just don't like the mix,
Oh yeah,
or like the singer's voice, like
Voice,
just the
yeah.
voice is just like unappealing.
and you can't do
It's
it.
like, well, I'm sorry, the song could be great, but it's gonna bother me too much.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Totally know what you mean.
Anyway,
I know we could. We should just talk about TV shows
yeah,
one
we
day.
should
'cause,
just
yeah.
watch. We should watch the special and just it'd be hilarious. It's so bad.
It's only 5 episodes.
Oh, what's 5? I thought it was 2.
No, it's a 5-part crossover.
Nah, that's too
event.
much, man. I have other things I need to watch. I need to watch the Watchmen TV show before I waste time on that.
Hands down. Yes,
Yeah?
you do.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm one of the everyone I've asked that I'm just like, have you seen Watchmen? Have you seen Watchmen?
Yeah.
Because I'm finally watching Watchmen,
Yeah.
and they're like, yeah, I just saw episode 9, like blah blah blah, and I was like, whoa, I just got to episode 6. I started 2 days ago, guys.
Whoa,
like,
hold on.
it's amazing,
That's cool. I'm
hands
down.
down.
We'll have to do an episode. We'll hit it.
It'll be the
We'll
next
finish
one.
up
It's
everything
too
about
good.
Watchmen.
It's too good, too good. Unlike.
I'm like anything on the CW. Or you mean Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
And back to Doomsday Clock. So the last thing that we get is because all the superheroes went off to investigate Dr. Manhattan on Mars.
Yeah.
And now they're all like tangled up in this battle.
Mhm.
And because of that, Black Adam, who's trying to like create the country for metahumans.
Yeah, a safe haven.
And it is there, but he's being like very militaristic about it. He wants everyone to kind of like fall in line. He's like Magneto. It's exactly what it is.
He's 100% Magneto.
He's
He's the
100%
Magneto
Magneto.
of this universe. I never thought
Yeah.
about that comparison, but that's that's great.
Wonder Woman is like defending Superman at the UN
Mhm.
because Russia is demanding that Superman be turned over
You
because
know
of that event and everything.
that whole Russia thing. If they would have given Firestorm like 4 seconds, he could have just
Yeah.
cured him. And I don't get why they're even running over their own people. You think they would have been more cautious themselves?
Well, it's funny because you said that in the last episode, and my response is the same as it was then.
Oh.
They just thought they were already dead.
yeah,
Like all the people were like, "You killed my son." You know what I mean? They just
Yeah.
didn't believe him. But they probably should have because
could have avoided a
they
lot
could
of
have
stuff.
avoided a whole bunch.
But that's the world.
I guess. I mean, it's probably what would happen.
Yeah.
If like those kind of situations were real. But Wonder Woman goes to the UN to defend Superman.
Mhm.
And Wonder Woman is now like the last metahuman on Earth who's not part of Black Adam's squad.
Yeah.
And he shows up to attack her. And he's like making his move, is what he says.
Yeah.
That's how the issue ends.
Mhm.
This guy's a jerk. He's not very nice.
Well, yeah, it's Black Adam, which they just recently announced that Black Adam now has a release date with The Rock.
Whoa.
Yeah. Did you know that The Rock was going to play Black Adam?
I didn't even know that.
Oh, Rock's playing Black Adam.
I'm going to be honest. I don't really know much about Black Adam. I know that he looks like Shazam, but he's black.
Did you ever see Shazam?
No, I never watched Shazam.
It's a good movie.
I mean, I kind of, I don't even not like the Marvel movies. Like, I enjoy watching them, but I feel like there are so many of them that the idea of me going to another company's thing, I'm just like, ugh.
Well,
I'm already
Shazam's something you don't need to know
watching all
anything
these
else
things.
about.
Well, that is kind of alluring that DC has now stepped away from, hey, everything's got to be connected.
Kinda.
They're done. Sort of. But we'll
Sort of.
see.
They're just figuring it out at this point.
Yeah,
Like,
they're just
kind of rolling the dice
They're
and
just
like,
stabbing in the dark.
because apparently this new Harley Quinn movie isn't even connected to Suicide Squad at all.
Oh, that's weird. And then the new Suicide Squad reboot,
Has nothing to do.
but has Harley Quinn in it, played by Margot Robbie. So
Yeah, I don't know.
it's like
They're figuring it out. You know?
But it seems like she's been super popular.
Yeah, she has. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't watched any of these movies, but like, there's a lot of fans of Margot Robbie, Harley
Mhm.
Quinn, so it makes sense for them to keep the one thing that worked.
And I'm not a big fan of this new Harley Quinn they have going on, the roller derby type of new 52.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I like the Paul Dini Batman the Animated
like,
Series Harley
like
Quinn.
Jester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I will state this, and I will even show it to you and watch it for a third, maybe the fourth time by the time you and me watch it together. This new Harley Quinn TV show on DC Universe, the animated one,
Okay.
amazing, dude.
Wow.
It is like a DC Adult Swim cartoon.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is too good. The first 30 seconds blew my mind. And I had to pause
Interesting.
it and be like,
Weird.
let me
Okay.
restart this and enter this
Hmm.
new like approach. And it's great. It's a
I'll have to
hands
check it
down.
out. See, but again, I'm
so
just
good.
hesitant. You know what I mean? It's like DC.
So
I don't know what
good.
it is. I just don't have the, except for Batman. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't know why I make an exception for Batman. Everyone else, I'm like, ugh. And I say that though, but I didn't even watch Batman v Superman, so it's not even like I'm like super like
you
I
don't really
missed the
got
whole
to.
Batman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you already whatever. It's a whole
But
nother
whatever.
tangent.
Let's try and reel it in a little bit. Issue 10. Moving on. This is the issue that gets real, and this is like a gripe. So 7, we have like Batman meeting up with Comedian and Mime and Marionette, and Dr. Manhattan's there. And then all of a sudden, when we get to 9, it's just, or when we get to 8, it's all about Superman in Russia and doing that whole thing
Yeah.
with Firestorm. So they just dropped that whole story, got to issue 8, did this whole story with Firestorm. Batman shows up. He's just there.
Yeah.
And then 9, we get the continuation of that story. We're like, okay, what's going to happen next
Yeah.
with Wonder Woman? And then 10, they do it to us again.
They drop everything.
Where they just drop everything and they just go to something else.
And that's my biggest gripe about this whole series is that
Yeah.
you can tell it was written so far apart.
Yeah.
Like, and rereading it, I felt more confused than when I was reading it like every 6 months. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like it was just not. It doesn't feel like It doesn't feel like a fluid story.
No. It feels like parts are missing.
Like what character evolutions are going on here?
Well,
maybe with John.
I mean, that's the biggest one. I don't think anyone else really changes. Rorschach.
I guess
A little bit,
because he kind
but-
of turns back into Rorschach at the end.
The other thing too, the first part of the book focused so much on these new characters: Marionette,
Yeah.
Mime, the new Rorschach.
I think that's why I was so like the
I was
first
interested,
issue.
yeah.
I was like, man, this feels like Watchmen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the thing is too is that after like issue 2 or 3,
Mhm.
I was like, they're really just trying to feel like Watchmen instead of being a unique, organic thing.
Yeah, I could see that.
And they're using vocabulary, and I don't even remember Watchmen doing the whole it's 1978, it's 1932, it's 2035, like as much as they use it here.
Oh yeah. Well,
You know?
especially in this issue, we're getting to 10, where we have a heavy Dr. Manhattan issue.
Yeah,
It just gets a lot to keep reading that over and over again.
it does. It
It's
kind of
June
wears
5th.
you out.
I'm in the time lock.
And they kind of repeat the same time periods, like time
Yeah.
moments, and that's what gets kind of annoying.
Yeah, that's true.
But although 10 has to be one of my favorite out of this 12 issue series, probably like one of my top 3 favorite issues in this series.
Yeah, it is good. It is good. I just don't like that we got such a heavy focus on these characters and then we drop them for like 4 issues and it's just intense DC stuff. And then we get to the final 2 issues and they're like, "Oh, that's right. We had these new characters
Dude,
that we just
half
dropped."
the series you drop them.
And then
like 6 issues, yeah.
they bring him in and it's like, "Oh, what are they doing again?" You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Even rereading it now in a row, I still get that feeling of like, "Oh yeah, that's right." And this issue and a lot of like 9, they could have been weaved together to tell like one story at the same time.
Yeah.
And it might have helped with the flow a little bit more. It
Mhm.
it definitely feels like not planned out all the way. Like they
I feel like they had like a really good like pitch idea,
yeah.
but they're like, "Oh, they approved it."
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
Now we got to do it. Yeah. So 10 opens up with like a black and white page, and we're getting this story about like a private eye who's getting stabbed in the back by some temptress or whatever.
Yeah. This is the Black Freighter of Doomsday Clock.
Yeah, that is yeah, that's a good way to I didn't make that connection. It's totally what it is. But then we find out like on the next page, oh, this is a movie that they're filming right now.
Yeah.
And this is an actor, Carver Coleman.
Mhm.
And then we see so much about Carver Coleman's life. Like, because the next thing that happens in the book is that he dies.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the book is explaining everything and his connections. He's the first guy that Dr. Manhattan meets when he travels through and breaks into this universe.
Mhm.
And he's like on the streets. He has no money. He's just poor. can't find
He's
a place to
true
stay.
Hollywood story.
Yeah, the police are like clubbing him, telling him to go find someplace else to sleep. And Dr. Manhattan like meets with him
On April 18th,
Yeah.
1938.
and then like every year
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and he tells him, not even trying to help him, but just how John talks about the future and about
Well,
what's going to happen.
John can't see anything when he gets to this
Yeah.
new place. And so he's trying to focus in on this guy
Mhm.
and his environment and try to like understand the world. And through that, that's how he sees this guy's future. And that's kind of like his Jeff Johns uses this a lot, is that's his whatchamacallit? Dang it. What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know. Training montage.
Pole. It's his
Totem pole.
no. Dang it.
His Festivus pole.
It's what like draws him back into the universe. It's his
Tether to reality.
kind of. I feel so ridiculous now at this point.
You
I
should.
can't think of the name.
It's embarrassing now. You gotta drop it.
Yeah.
It's-
But it's like what keeps John like coming back every single time
Yeah.
and like understanding where he's going. And through that he's able to gain his abilities basically because of this guy, and he kind of uses him as a test. And this dude is just listening to him, and that's how he's boosting his career because
Yeah.
he understands the next step that's going to happen.
Mhm. And he becomes a famous actor,
Mhm.
but then he's blackmailed and killed
Yeah.
in this issue as well.
Do you remember what the blackmail was? I think it's a letter at the end of one issue.
Well, if it was a letter at the end of the issue, I didn't read it because it wasn't from some random person who's reading the comic. But from the story, we find out later that it's his mom who is blackmailing him. He knows that he's gay, and she wants his Hollywood money.
That's what it is.
And
Yeah.
she's the one that kills him. She like clubs him in the back of the head.
Which
and he
is funny
dies.
because that's this. It was with an award he got, right?
Yeah.
And that's just like how Hollis Mason died, was getting clubbed in the
That's true.
head with his like
Ooh.
metal thing.
Deep cuts
Yeah.
here. Yeah, that's true, man. And there is a lot of like rhyming. As George Lucas would say, it's like poetry. It rhymes.
Hmm.
There's a lot of symmetry in this story.
Oh yeah.
And is it a good or bad thing? I don't think it's too over the top. I think it's pretty subtle. Like, for instance, the clubbing with the award thing doesn't seem like blatantly like, oh, remember this? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I felt like, I don't know. And this could be, I could be speaking more biased now than if I hadn't watched like half of the new Watchmen TV show. But
Which is essentially just another sequel,
yeah.
but not related to the DC universe.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no. It's supposed
just
to be a
like a
remixed
Watchmen
future.
sequel,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's actual. I mean, I would take it as a Watchmen sequel at this point. It
That's
is
cool.
phenomenal.
That's interesting.
So great.
Damon Lindelof's great. The Leftovers is excellent. That's a fantastic show.
I want to watch everything he's ever written now.
Pretty sure he did Lost.
Never
that's
saw Lost.
Damon Lindelof. What, really?
Yeah,
You should get your Lindelof on, man.
going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely check out Leftovers. It's short. It's only like 3 seasons.
Oh, that's great.
It's fantastic. Of course, we'll have to see. Hopefully, Watchmen picks up some traction. I don't know how it's doing in ratings. I'm curious.
It's doing great, and
Really?
they're asking for a second season, and he's straight up saying, no, this is a self-contained story. It's 9 chapters, and that's it.
Ooh, that sounds very appealing. But why not
Yes.
12?
Right? But then again,
If you're going to do 9, why not 12?
real quick
man?
gripe against that too is that Doomsday Clock is 12 issues, just like the original Watchmen
Mhm.
was. Doomsday Clock took 2 years to come out. Watchmen did not take 2 years to come out. Came out every month consecutively for
Yeah.
a year. And Watchmen didn't need a 12 oversized issue like Doomsday Clock.
Yes. Well, the 12th issue is oversized because at that point they realized, hey, we got to make sure we leave them with something.
Something.
Of course, is it fair to compare these poor schmucks to Alan Moore in what is his like magnum opus? You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, this, that symphony your son wrote's pretty good, but is it Beethoven's Ninth? I don't know. It's like, whoa, okay, well, that's fair.
Sorry.
Yeah. Let me see what else happens in 10. So, yes, we have this thing with Carver
My
Coleman.
favorite part.
The
The Superman explanation.
yes.
The metaverse.
The metaverse that Superman is at the core of this metaverse. He exists in all of them.
Which is the DC universe, essentially.
Yeah, and every time we have all these breakoffs, no matter what the DC event is, it's centered around Superman. Although in some of these things, because of Dr. Manhattan, Superman's disappearing from some of the universes.
Yeah, it's
like what would happen if Dr. Manhattan. This gets really confusing without spoiling the last issue.
We can spoil it. This will be out by then. I think, from my understanding, was that I was thinking like super meta in this sense. Is that, the DC universe reboots every 10, 12 years or so.
Yeah.
And every 10, 12 years, you have the origin of Superman, and it's set in that timeline. So originally it was April 18th, 1938, the same time John showed up.
And that's how it's presented in the book. They start way back in time, and then it's like 10 years.
Yeah, and then 1956 or something, and then 1980 something, and then 1992.
And then when he's a young boy, his parents die. When he's an adult, his parents die.
Yeah, and it messes with it. Every time they kind of need a writer to rewrite DC history, that's when they give Superman a new origin, until they hit the New 52 mark in 2011 or something. And that's where John is saying then he's intervening in the whole DCU. And that's the whole premise of this whole thing, was that the New 52 relaunch was missing love, relationships, emotion, certain character aspects, and the Justice Society for one. And that's all because John tinkered with things and messed it all up. And I don't really get if John was the one that, I'm in 1938, I'm going to take Superman out, see what happens. I'm in 1956, I'm going to take Superman out and see what happens. I don't know if that's how they were putting it, but to me, I was just
some of it was, like the stuff with the Green Lantern was.
Yeah, and that's the tinkering part for the New 52. That's how I understood it. But as an overall, I think it's more of this universe reacts. So once you get to a certain point, it kind of resets itself. And it's not so much, it opens the multiverse like they were saying, but now it's a new universe and you're jumping onto that one. Like an event happens, like Superman dies and then they have to relaunch it. It's super weird.
It is weird. I'm not entirely sure.
But I do like the aspect of like, it's a metaverse and it's organic and it's living and it's doing its own thing and it's fighting back. And that's why it's fighting back against John, because it won't die. It won't just kick over and die. And I thought that was a cool explanation of this type of DC continuity shuffle of cards they have now.
And I think there is something really meta about making Superman the center of the universe, because I'm sure every time they restart it, they probably start with Superman. The writers, they're like, okay, what are we gonna do with Superman? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He's got to be like at the center of it. There's also a cool thing where they show like the JSA meeting, and this is super similar to the Minutemen meeting.
Oh wow, that's
or the
true.
first meeting of the Watchmen, where they talk about, we need Superman here, and in Watchmen we have them talking about how they need Dr. Manhattan because he's got the powers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. And they're even sitting at a table, kind of a similar, like it looks more Minutemen, I think.
Yeah.
But they also have a thing where John shows slightly different versions of the universe that he kind of creates by, I guess, tinkering. Some of it's left open to interpretation, I guess. But it seems like John is stumbling through time and space, changing small aspects and creating what should be an infinite amount of multi-universes. The thing that really bothers me is that, and I don't know how accurate this is, it just seems like DC is saying by the end of this book that there are 56 different universes. And 56 really isn't that many when you think about all the tiny things that John did and how many different universes would be opened up. It should be like billions.
I think that's why it's supposed to just be one, which is again confusing, but it's supposed to be one universe.
Okay.
And the one that he tinkers with is just the New 52 universe. Yeah.
But in 12 they do go through like Earth 1, Earth 2, and they go through all these different places.
Earth 1985.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what is cool is that a few years ago, it might be even worth it for us to read it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But Grant Morrison put out a book called The Multiversity. And the
Okay.
Multiversity talked about all these weird, bizarre worlds. And they were each a one-shot special of different worlds. And one of the issues was the Multiversity Guidebook. And it told you about each one of the worlds. And there was even some with like question marks that hadn't been discovered yet. And it's actually a good handful of worlds.
It's interesting. I was looking through something online. It was like a list of all the DC universes, and it was like 1 through 52.
Yeah.
And I remember some of them being just like a question mark.
Yeah.
Like, oh, universe or not discovered yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe I saw something that was kind of like a summary of that. That'd be interesting read though. I'd be down to check
it's
that out.
great. Yeah. It's a lot of
Especially after reading all this multiverse stuff, I'm kind of curious to see what else they have in here.
fun. But I think that's the cool thing about issue 10 is that it gave reasoning to reboots, and it gave an explanation to why the continuity is all over the place.
It connects everything
Yeah.
by one issue. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, this is how we tie it all up with a bow. And it also, I like the ending of this book a lot, this issue, because it's like John coming to the realization that everything he's done since he's gotten these powers, he's been passive. He's been a man of inaction. And that Superman is the opposite.
It's what happens when a unstoppable object meets the
Unmovable force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it totally is.
So what? Superman's the unstoppable object and John's the immovable force.
Just stay in there. Stay in there like a sack of potatoes.
And that's the interesting about, I mean, at first I thought John was like the watcher of the universe. You know what I mean? Like in the Marvel universe, you have the watchers.
Yeah.
I thought that's what he would be like. But it's kind of interesting how there actually is now like a watcher of the DC universe that I haven't read about. In a series called Sideways, they introduce one.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, ideas. So on to issue 11.
Yeah.
And this one, this one had a... I had forgotten what happened in this issue. I think you said the same thing because there was such a big gap between 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And there was an even bigger gap between 11 to 12. I was like, I'm going to kind of breeze through it. And then I'm going to have to reread it when issue 12 comes out.
And then also
later.
11 doesn't help that it's just like a bunch of storylines.
Yeah, this is kind of their...
It's trying to tackle so many things, and it's trying to set the stage for the final act.
Yeah.
And I guess going through here,
and it's really just the action happening. And you're right,
Yeah.
it's setting the stage. It's the
Wonder Woman fighting back after Black Adam attacks.
Mime and Mariette kind of moving from there. We finally come back to them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like
we didn't see him since 7. And so we have like 8, 9, and 10 with nothing. And then 11, we just jump back in after the last time we saw them. It seemed like they were like on a mission. And then all of a sudden they're just back in the city. We also have in 11 this whole thing about Lex Luthor, who once he was trying to see Superman while he was unconscious.
Yeah.
Lois was assuming for
Superman's
nefarious reasons.
been down since that explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we find out that Lex has been like tracking all these pictures of Dr. Manhattan and Janie. And then when Dr. Manhattan travels through different times, he ends up leaving this picture behind.
Yeah.
And Lex has been collecting these from all over the world, from all these different times, and they're all exactly identical. And he knows that there's something going on with it. And Lex knows that Dr. Manhattan is behind this whole like framing of Superman by Russia, or at least that he's involved in it. But really, and we also get this explanation, it's if it wasn't clear enough already, it's Veidt. It's Ozymandias who's up to it. And he's pulling like the same play that he did in Watchmen.
Yeah.
And that he knows how John's going to act, and he knows how he can make the world turn against itself without having to really get his hands dirty necessarily.
Yeah.
He's just got to make something happen, like an event that's going to make people decide a certain way.
Yeah.
And he's getting Superman exiled just like he got Manhattan exiled in Watchmen, essentially. So that guy's up to his old tricks.
So do you think it was Veidt that caused the explosion in Russia?
Yeah, he does. He mentioned something about that in this issue. I'd have to look through it again and see where it is that he says it. But he's talking to Saturn Girl?
Yeah, Saturn Girl. Part of
She's-
the Legion of the 31st Century.
She's locked up. He's got her captured there. Yeah, and he says it's on page 23 of issue 11. After I leaked the information of Firestorm's Russian counterpart, Pozar, I placed Raymond under increasing pressure from the media. Ultimately, Superman went to Moscow to intervene, defending Firestorm in hopes he might save lives. Then Babastis helped me create a little detonation. People died. Superman was blamed for protecting Firestorm, but I wanted the metahumans, who would no doubt investigate, to quickly learn the explosion was not Firestorm. The heroes of this Earth would then trace this energy not back to me and Babastis, but to John. And that's how he got the superheroes to go get him on Mars. So Ozymandias, through his trickery, he has fooled all the heroes. He got all of them.
The whole DCU.
The whole DCEU. They fell right into his trap.
Except for Batman. Batman knew.
Dude, Batman always knows.
Yeah.
This is why he was Peeps and Predicts champ forever. Because the man, he knows how to get out of a situation. And don't you forget that, Frank. But then we have Superman finally coming head to head with John at the end of this issue.
And we've been seeing this preview of like them going head to head for so long.
Oh, and we hear about John saying, in 6 days I'll fight Superman or something.
Yeah.
And the world will come to an end, or I will come to an end. Because after that he can't see the future anymore. Nope. Something has stopped it. And that's kind of where all our heroes are left off. Then we go into issue 12.
Yeah, like 6 months later after issue 11 was like released,
and then
dude.
They give this fat little issue 12 with an addendum on there.
So
pretty intense. There's one thing we forgot to mention in 11, and that's that Alfred is out trying to get Rorschach to come back with them.
Yeah, because Rorschach gave up because once he found out that Veidt didn't have cancer and he was, using Rorschach as a puppet.
Yeah,
he just got upset and took the mask off.
He was used before, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rorschach,
honestly.
Right? And then Alfred's trying to get him to, because they read the journal and they realized we were wrong for locking you in Arkham Asylum after just meeting you.
Yeah.
And he's not happy about that, obviously. But anyways, issue 12, Superman head to head with Dr. Manhattan. They're having this conversation. Dr. Manhattan's being his typical creepy self.
Well, also the Cadax and Black Adam come in to play because they beat up Wonder
Russian
Woman.
Heroes too, right?
Yeah.
So it's like all of these baddies show up and they start beating Superman up. And you know what? I just don't buy it when Superman's getting beat up by other superheroes. I feel like he could just kill all these people. I mean, obviously he's not going to kill them.
Yeah, but I think he could take a punch better.
Yeah, they show Superman like bleeding from the mouth and stuff. I'm like,
yeah. Now against Black Adam, I understand.
Yeah, but all these other C-rate superheroes, you know what I mean?
If it's fire, it's like, dude, he just brushes that off. Like,
yeah. It seems unusual. We have Alfred trying to convince him to come again. Rorschach to come with him, but he's just totally not down. And then we get even more like DC fan service. There's this great like 2-page spread of just this like giant fight, and I was searching in the fight and you can't even see Superman. You got to presume that he's been like pummeled in the ground somewhere, but he's not even in the shot. It's just of these superheroes like duking it out. I'm trying to see what this is actually a really cool moment.
You just see his cape.
Where is it?
Follow Black Adam's lightning.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Cool.
So he's getting pummeled.
yeah. So he's getting pummeled.
He's not having a good time. We get Batman approaching. He shows up. He apologizes for locking him up, and then there's a great moment with him in this issue where Batman is saying where Rorschach's saying, I can't wear the mask. Like, the mask is what killed my parents. It's a monster. And Batman's like, well, you see the mask as one thing, but you can make it what other people see.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, Batman.
Yeah.
This is like you.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean?
Which has always been the parallel character, you know?
Yeah. That's
and
true.
so that's cool.
Well, hasn't Night Owl really been the Batman?
Yeah, but you
Or in a
get the
weird way, it's like both of them.
it's yeah,
Like Rorschach and Night Owl combined are like two aspects of Batman.
just like both. I mean, yeah, essentially. Because who else would Night Owl be?
I don't know. I
You're
mean,
right.
he looks like Batman. He's got the technology.
And then the Earth 3 version of
vehicle.
Batman is Owlman, so yeah, that makes
Oh,
sense.
geez, that's even closer. Yeah,
But
doesn't get much closer.
I've
than
always
that.
gotten that dark, Batman. I've always had like a Batman voice whenever I hear Rorschach, like a real corrupted
Yeah.
Batman type of voice. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, like a real. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name right now. Real Christian Bale Batman.
Yeah,
like real
exactly.
growly.
And then the moment that we've all been waiting for, when, Superman's getting pummeled. He's asking for help.
Yeah,
And he's like, I can't do this like alone. Like there's people around us. Like help. Like do
Yeah.
something, dude. And John's just like, huh? Just kind of spacing
I
out.
can't help people.
And there's and then we also see. I thought this was a cool moment. The squid. This looks like a tracing, or maybe just a cutout image of the original
Oh
Watchmen.
yeah, they do a little flashback, and it
Mhm.
looks just like it. Like if
Dead too.
if they recreated this for this book, then bravo,
Yeah.
because they nailed the color palette and the image.
And I feel like they
Perfectly.
did. I gotta look it back, but if you look at the can in the middle, it has a Flash logo.
Huh, I didn't notice
And
that.
then you see the helmet with the kind of a smiley face hint. You have
Yeah.
a Rorschach mask at the bottom. But there's a lot of little like hints. I gotta open up the original Watchmen and look at that.
Yeah. Pop open that. Is that issue 12 or is that 11?
In Watchmen,
Yeah, I
I
think
want to
it's.
say it's like 10.
Oh, is it really 10?
I could be totally wrong.
I thought it was close to. I thought it was really close. So there is a moment where John kind of changes his mind a little bit, where Superman defends him, and Superman tells him, "Hey, you have to make a choice, man. You've been so convinced that it's either me destroying you or you destroying me, but maybe there's another choice." And he starts asking her about Janie, and this picture, and he kind of pulls John out of his Johnness. He like makes him kind of care again, which is sort of insane. But then John ends this universe, if I'm not mistaken. That's what happens here. John uses his power, and then we get like 2 pages of just pure black panels.
That's why the book took 6 months to come out. I sent that to
Yeah.
a friend. I just showed him those 2 pages.
Yeah.
We have the book a day early. Yeah. But I showed it to a friend. Just the blank 2 pages of it's 6, maybe 8 panels, maybe.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is why the book took 6 months to come out. Wait, real fast. Sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
I'm looking at the comparison between Watchmen and Doomsday Clock, and this is the reprint of Watchmen, so it's fairly updated with the color palette, and I feel like they definitely redrew this. I'm
That's
looking
cool.
at the eyeball and the way the squid is really textured. You could tell this was, ooh, yeah. It doesn't even land in the same spots on some parts, but all the details, like the Rorschach mask, the flash lightning bolt, those are all in the original Watchmen.
Huh.
It's really cool. It's actually a nice comparison. Check this out. I want you to see this too.
I would have never caught that there was a flash symbol in it. Reaching over.
But before that, what I think is real kind of corny in a sense is that we see the face-off between Dr. Manhattan and Superman, and we've been anticipating this face-off for so long. And
Yeah.
we're seeing these images where they're about to like attack each other, that that whole anime kind of collision where their powers kind of meet.
Yeah.
And then just Superman punches
That's
the guy
nice.
behind him.
Yeah. Well, that's Superman for you. You know what I mean?
It is, and this. Oh, excuse me, thank you.
That's really cool. That comparison's really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to post this on the Instagram, but if
You
you're just
should.
a fan listening to this, open up Watchmen and open up whatever page that's on issue 12,
Whatever.
page
Oh,
14, and
Okay.
look at that comparison, because it is awesome looking at Gary Frank, and it makes you realize how great of an artist Gary
wait.
Frank is.
Page 14 of Watchmen?
No, of Doomsday Clock.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's weird. They got it on the same exact page. So yeah, Manhattan resets the universe essentially. He ends one of the universes. and then we get that more are just created. This part's confusing because it seems like everything just goes back to normal.
But look at the rocket goes out. It's in like way different time periods.
Yeah, but it seems like it starts off with like Neanderthals and then it goes through time, and it seems like what they're suggesting is we just catch up with the events of this universe.
And I'm not too sure if this is where I'm super thrown off now.
Yeah.
Because when you read, did you read Rebirth? Did I have you read that?
No, I didn't read it. Oh, I did. The one with the comedian smiley face.
Yeah.
When the button just shows up
in
the Batcave. Yeah, I read that.
I gotta talk to you about the comedian part too next. I don't, the whole point of this whole Doomsday Clock thing was to explain why the New 52 ended and Rebirth occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm just like, are we going to have another DC reboot? Because this has been 2 years that we've been under Rebirth.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I honestly don't get this part because after Manhattan says everything ends and it all goes black, and then we get all this stuff going through time, it begins with a child. The metaverse forms around this one and only son.
Yeah.
And then suddenly in like another 4 pages, we're just back exactly in the same situation. Except now all of the DCEU shows up.
Yeah. I guess it just rewrote the history of this one Earth, but isn't that a new Earth?
Yeah. And isn't that essentially all? Like, I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
And but they just started releasing these issues. I haven't caught up yet, but the Legion of Superheroes just came out. Brian Michael Bendis just rebooted this and brought back this team, and it does deal with Superboy. It does do all that, but it's Superboy is Superman's son, not Superman Superboy.
Okay.
And so this Saturn girl is saying she's from the 30th century. This new Legion is saying it's from the 31st century.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering if this is now like the rebooted, now current Rebirth. Now I'm wondering if we should go back and reread. Well, not us, like we don't have to, but now I'm wondering if you're gonna read this and then start reading Rebirth, like storylines. Maybe it'll make sense then.
That sounds awful. They do make a comment about this being like Universe 56 now.
Or is this a whole new universe?
Because it says in January 2026, the timeline is restored and Earth 56 is born.
Dude, I have no idea.
I don't know, man.
Because it goes through all the like you're saying, it shows all the crises.
Yeah,
and the way it's phrased, after the Flashpoint and this rebirth, Earth 52 is out there, as in that Earth still exists.
Yeah, I look beyond now.
And this rebirth, like as in this rebirth that we're living in and reading right now, or this rebirth and then rebirth starts.
I think now we're in Earth 56. I think we're in a new universe created by Dr. Manhattan. Like he reset what was supposed to be 52. And then now it's 56?
Unless this is hinting to future stuff, because the next page it says, in the year 2020, Superman's timeline is bombarded by the reckless energies of the old gods, once again warping the metaverse. And currently in DC continuity, for as much as I read, is that the source wall, which held in the DC universe, which is made of old gods, like the Fourth World Jack Kirby gods, that has been broken. And they've unleashed the power behind it. And Justice League, like JSI just appeared in Justice League.
Okay.
I haven't read up to that. I need to catch up on Justice League. And so I don't know, man.
Who knows, dude?
But
this gets so confusing. And this is like the culmination of the biggest problem of this book is that if you're just a Watchmen fan and not a DC fan, it's very difficult to follow.
If you're just a Watchmen fan and you pick up this book, don't.
Yeah, like, or read the first 6 issues and then stop. Because in the beginning, it doesn't seem that way.
No, it seems like you could pick it up. And that's the thing about Watchmen. You could pick it up and you could be like, this is a comic book. This is a self-contained story. Yeah. That's what the sequel should have been too. Which is why the new TV show is so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this crossover thing is a fun little idea. I think, especially if you're like a diehard DC fan and you love Watchmen, this seems like, hey, this seems like a fun time. And there were some really fun moments.
There were, but I think
Um,
it took too long to
it
come
took
out for
well,
us to
yeah.
enjoy.
If they kept it up tighter,
Yeah.
um,
Like all I read is mainly DC. The only
Mhm.
thing I read from Marvel is like Venom and anything Donny Cates writes because it's awesome.
yeah,
But this is just, even for me, dude, like I'm not satisfied.
yeah, it's really strange. Well, let's get through the rest of this ending here. So, Dr. Manhattan is now um, with all of the Watchmen characters.
Yeah.
So, comedian,
All
my
of that
marionette,
Earth.
Rorschach, yeah,
Or is
Ozymandias.
this Earth 56?
This is 56 still, because Ozymandias is shot by the comedian, and then they get the comedian with some kind of device that's going to send him back to where he came from.
Oh, and did you see the name of that gun? There's a panel where they show the name of it.
What is it?
Let me backtrack. It's in this issue.
It's
I
like
wanna
Lex
say.
Luthor's gun. Yeah, it is in this
he
issue.
grabs it from a case. Or was it in issue 11?
It might have been in 11, actually.
It's like a vibrational frequency transmitter gun thing. You know what I mean?
wow.
Like,
Yeah,
um,
some made up thing. But then it seems like they teleport comedian back to the moment that he got sucked out. Which is
back in his
hilarious,
robe.
because
Which,
it's him being pushed out the window. That's when he crossed over.
and that was that was a gripe for me too, is that back in issue, I think 1 or 2 of this series, you show comedian and he's falling and then he's taken out.
Mhm.
And now he's in this universe. So now he's living a whole life again and then gets sent to that same moment where he was about to die and dies in 1985.
Yeah. So for
Why?
for a brief moment, so that the comedian could be in the book, Brandon.
But when you think about
that's
the comedian's
reasoning.
part,
That's totally
like,
the reasoning.
what was the comedian's part even in this book?
He had to be there so that he could shoot people and do comedian things.
Essentially,
That's exactly what it was. I mean,
he
if
had
you're
to
gonna,
shoot Edward Nygma in the kneecap.
they wanted to write a sequel, and they were like, okay, there's certain people we can use and we can't use, because if the comedian wasn't in it, then all of a sudden it's like Ozymandias, Dr. Manhattan, and not Rorschach.
Comedian's dead. He shouldn't have been in it from the first place.
You know, well, there's a lot of things that probably shouldn't have happened. Although, to be fair, Ozymandias is now dying. He's being shot, and now we have John on a mission. He says, "Hey, my marionette, you're staying in this world. We're not taking you back. You don't belong there."
Anchor. That was a stupid word I was trying to think of earlier.
Oh, jeez, man,
Yeah.
that was really bothering you.
Yeah.
But then John goes back to his dinners with Carver Coleman.
Yeah.
And now tells him, "Hey, man, I was being a real jerk, dude." And he says, "Don't be afraid of what you feel." And we get now an alternate future where
He
Carver
survives.
Coleman dies an old man.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, I'm gay." And he fought to get homosexuality removed from the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic Manual of Mental Disorders.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nice, man.
Yeah.
That's
Cool
a cool
stuff.
thing to do. And then also we see this future where Dr. Manhattan somehow let Clark's parents live.
Yeah. Well, it's because Clark revealed himself
Yeah.
and saved them when he was supposed to go ask What's Her Face for a dance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So through his meddling, he's now meddled for good. And then we get thrown back to
Into the
Watchmen
Watchmen
universe.
Dude, I gotta ask you right now, and please, I hope you have an answer because I can't figure it out. Who is Cleopatra Pack?
Oh, God. Where are you getting that from?
From page 43. This little girl with Bubastis.
Oh, Cleopatra. I assumed. Oh my gosh.
I thought it was the Mima Marriott's daughter.
Yeah, that's
but
what I thought when I read
But
this.
then they're just like, 2 panels later, it's like, as callous and cruel as Erica Mason and Marcos Mayes can be, the love between them is real. What about Anita, after your mother.
That's right. Yeah. Well, would Cleopatra Pack be Vite's child?
From who?
I don't know, but she has Bubastis,
Yeah, but
and she goes to visit the grave of
she's
Ozymandias.
obsessed with that Ozzy. Maybe it's a new character. Maybe it's new. I've Googled it. I've Googled.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, so hard. With every tag I could think
Jeez.
of. I have no idea who this Cleopatra person is.
On
But
her 16th birthday. Yikes! I don't know.
right? Yeah, that threw
Did
me
we
for a
miss
loop.
something? I don't.
Dude, I just reread this whole series and so did you.
Yeah.
Fans,
Wow.
please, who is Cleopatra Pack?
Yeah. Page 43 of Doomsday Clock 12. Tell us who this little girl is.
All right, and now we're on the last 3 pages of
Yeah,
Doomsday
man.
Clock number 12.
Jeez.
And
This is where things get real confusing for me, man.
dude, I reread the ending like 2 or 3 times. Call me dumb. All you fans out there who only read it once and understood it right away. But dude, I had to reread this ending.
Oh,
to,
now I
piece
feel
it
like I
together.
get it.
Yeah.
So the child is Mime and Marionette's child.
Yes. The little boy.
And John is raising him.
John takes him.
John takes him. And that's why he doesn't kill them.
Yeah. Why is John taking a baby though?
Well, now he's changed. Now he's trying to make things better.
So we just take. I mean, I guess they're in prison.
No, they're not.
No.
Don't they have their own child now?
I thought they.
Oh,
I thought
do
were
they end
prison.
up in prison?
I mean, I assume. Maybe that's not in prison.
Doesn't seem like they're in prison in this one spot when
Hey,
Anita's
why
born.
do you take their child then? Give them their kid back, John.
Because he wants to raise the child, man. What? And then this part, he has his daydream where he goes back in time, and Janie tells him, "Hey, don't worry about getting your watch out of there. Don't worry so much about time." And then he lives out in his imagination his life with Janie. And then we have this weird scene of John like disappearing into flowers.
Well, check this out. So, as you said before we started the podcast, we all knew that Janie was like the toss aside girl because he ditched
Yeah.
her for like a 16-year-old.
It's really weird in this book that they romanticize so much Janie when he
Yeah.
just dumped Janie at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I went for this super underage girl. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
Silk Spectre. But he's on Mars when we see him, and look at him and the kid are on Mars, and it's like, look, John, a falling star. Shall we make a wish? What kind of kid says "shall" too? By the way,
A kid raised by Dr. Manhattan.
yeah. And I'm looking at the sky in the background. It looks like they're still on Mars. And he says, a final. This is the second panel on the third row on page
Mhm.
44. He says, a final thought as I give the last of my power to this world and this child, so that this planet has a protector who will receive love. So I think he's on Mars and he gives life to Mars, and he's fading away because he's going into this world where him and Janie live together, but he devotes all his power into this child.
Yeah, he like makes himself disappear.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we wind up at Silk Spectre and Owlman's house. And I guess that's Saturn Girl that they're raising? Isn't her name Sally?
Her name's Sally, but arguably because of her mom, Sally Jupiter.
Oh, there you go. She looks like Saturn Girl.
She kind of does after seeing so much Saturn Girl.
Yeah.
And I was confused because there was a scene before where they show, it made it seem like Mime and Marionette's kid was going to be the one that they had adopted in like 2 issues prior when they're
Yeah.
talking about the adoption thing. But it
Because
seems
they
like,
were in that panel.
but it seems like Sally is their child because Mime and Marionette have another girl and her name's Anita.
But why
And
is
the other kid is Clark.
she blonde when neither Night Owl or...
They're both blonde in this book.
Well, no, but they changed their hair to be blonde
Oh, that's
at
true.
the end of Watchmen.
Dan
because they're-
Dryberg has brown hair.
Yeah, so does Silk Spectre.
That's true. They're both brown haired.
Yeah.
I don't have the answers for you, man. I didn't write this thing.
But right, like that's the thing about it is that, you know, when you finish Watchmen, There are a lot of things left over because it's a mystery. The whole thing is a mystery. First off, it's a whodunit type of thing. You know, it's about a murder. It's based on the death of a comedian. And at the end of it, you're just like, well, what's going to happen to the world? Like, what's going to happen to Vite? Like, we know that Rorschach's dead. We know that these two are starting a new family. But there's things that are left unanswered, but it still brings it together.
Yeah.
And this leaves things unanswered, but you're like, what? Like, it's not like a good set. I felt settled and fulfilled at the end of Watchmen.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of this one, I'm just like,
I'm confused.
Yeah.
Well, particularly, this is Manhattan talking in 11. I knew in the past John watched the comedian shoot and kill pregnant women and had done nothing. John revealed to me over the years that he had seen Marionette's child's future, and then we have the shot of the Hollis family.
Yeah.
This boy would be adopted by a couple, and he would bring incredible joy to a woman who had been very important to John at one time in his life.
Okay. So giving it to...
the little girl is theirs.
Their
Sally
kid.
is their like biological kid. And the last page of this issue is this little boy who says, John calls me Clark. And he looks like Superman. He looks like a young Clark Kent.
Yeah.
But he's got the Dr. Manhattan atom, hydrogen, right? The hydrogen atom
hydrogen.
on his forehead. But he's not all blue. Just the hydrogen atom part is blue.
I think because you give him his power and he's still part.
Yeah. John has sacrificed himself in order to create a hero that could be better than he could ever be. And he makes a comment about how Superman is the way that he is because of the parents that he had. And there's a flashback to John's dad who doesn't care about him. And then, of course, John has gotten to a point where he felt nothing and now is feeling again, sort of. But I think he realizes I can't ever be like Superman.
Yeah.
But if I can turn myself into something, I can make this next kid, just as powerful as me, but with the compassion of Superman.
Yeah.
I guess is the idea. So he kind of sacrifices himself. And I guess that's cool. You know what I mean? I don't get how I'm supposed to feel about that.
I don't. I really don't. You know, this is a cool Superman story. And I really like...
It's surprisingly a Superman story.
Yeah.
It's almost not even a Watchmen story.
Yeah. It just happens to have Watchmen, you know?
Yeah.
But like, some of the coolest Superman stories I've read, like All-Star Superman, for example, or some of the earlier Jeff Johns Superman that I admire. It's just great stuff. It's about how, and this is where I finally began I was always like an anti-Superman, like Batman's the best type of person.
Yeah.
But I finally realized like Superman's full of hope and he's full of like being the ultimate thing you want to somehow come. You'll never achieve it, but that's the thing you're going to look up to. And that's going to be the thing you want to be like. He's the prime example of a great person, And excuse me. And this is what this book is about. And it's also the whole an unstoppable force meets the immovable object. What would happen? The
immovable object makes himself a boy.
Yeah.
That's what would happen. That's what Doomsday Clock taught us. I don't know. On the last podcast, I was like, you know what? There's something cooking here, guys. We'll have to see how this thing ends. I was like, we'll have to see how Doomsday Clock sticks the landing. Because, I've been saying the same thing about Game of Thrones. What if Game of Thrones doesn't stick the landing?
Yeah.
Oh, this was so long ago. And then I was like, well, right now I'm giving it 1 thumbs up. Because there's some really good ideas. And we just got to see how they come out. And I still got to give it 1 thumbs up, man. It just feels like the first part was interesting. There's some really cool moments that happen. But it just peters out. And
I feel like they
leave us with an ending that's just like, what?
Yeah. Almost every issue, you're just like, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. And then you're just like, oh. And then you come back to the next one and you're like, I'm back at the bottom again because I'm kind of lost and confused. But now it's getting crazy. Now it's going. And then the next issue comes out and you're like, well, I'm kind of like thrown off again. Like,
my recommendation would be read up to issue 11 and then pretend that they just haven't put out 12 yet. And then just stay in that moment forever.
Just like with Game of Thrones.
Oof, maybe, though.
Just don't watch season 8.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
But you know what I will say?
I'll say season 8 was pretty good. I'll say it right now. I'll say it to everyone in this whole room. Not as bad as we made it out.
No, I mean, I could probably rewatch it.
It's a decent season of TV. It's not a great season of Game of Thrones.
There you go.
Game of Thrones has just been too good. That's the problem.
So I'm writing an article right now. I write for a website called The Daily Fandom.
Mhm.
And it's, does Watchmen need or deserve a sequel? You know what I mean? Like,
doesn't need one.
No.
Doesn't need one.
Although,
but one
the TV show is so awesome, dude. Like, I promised Frank I wouldn't cuss on this episode. I'm holding myself back so hard. But that last episode, I mean, I haven't even watched the whole season. But I'm on episode 6 right now out of 9, and I've been watching 3 episodes a day, and it's so good. It is so good. It is so the premise and understanding. It deserves the title Watchmen.
That's cool.
Yeah, it really is. Like I think that's, and reading. It's kind of weird because it's like film and TV is never as good as comics. But this time, this sequel, trash compared to this other sequel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I almost say this isn't even a sequel. It's another story. It's a DC story with the Watchmen characters in it. It's
that
not
they
even
messed up again.
It's not even like they're really trying to write a narrative for the. It seemed like they were the first 4 issues.
Yeah. No, the beginning of the series is cool.
And it seems like that's what they're going to do. And then they drop it.
Like, honestly, I was really entranced by rereading it. And I was like, man, this is good. But then these last couple issues, I was like, man, I just got to finish this already. Like, it just felt too heavy at a certain point.
Yeah.
And the callbacks and the references, I feel like they feel more forced in this than in the TV show.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. And when you see some of the moments, like, dude, we've become like Watchmen experts at this point over the last year.
It's been pretty intense.
You're going to watch the show, and there are little inserts and everything, and little things in the background that you're just like,
that's cool.
Oh, yeah. There's some good stuff. I really enjoyed it, and this is just not as. I said it one time on the podcast that I read Lovecraft before Edgar Allan Poe, and that's why Poe like just didn't do a whole lot for me.
That's rude.
And I know, but I saw more of a show of Watchmen before I finished Doomsday Clock, and
it ruined it.
And just ruined it.
Ruined it. Well, sometimes that happens, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens.
Do I want to reread this? Not anytime soon.
No, I can't say that I'll be itching to reread it either.
Mm-mm.
And I don't see them. Do they do a Doomsday Clock too? I don't think so. Unless they make a buttload of money off this and they just decide to go for it again. I'm wondering what we're going to see of Clark John. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I am curious
Clark
about
Manhattan.
that. Like,
are they going to do something with it?
I hope they don't do a whole like Watchmen comic book series now. You know what I mean?
They might.
Like,
it'd probably be really bad.
I don't care who you got to write it. Like, Jeff Johns is one of the best writers in DC, and he just, I'm sorry, man. He tried.
He did the best with what he could.
Yeah. Tried.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't have happened. Maybe Alan Moore placed like a curse on him.
Well,
he is a magician.
You just can't live up to the more, man.
Mm-mm.
People will always be asking for more.
More.
Well, what else do we have to talk about today, man? Do you want to do old pull lists? Is there anything else you wanted to mention? I know you wanted to talk some Star Wars.
Oh, real fast. Let's talk about Star Wars real quick.
Yeah,
we're going to see the last, the Return of the Jedi, or what the hell is this?
The Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
This weekend, yeah. And we'll have a CLE out this weekend.
Yeah.
It's going to be an intense
hear what
weekend.
we think. I got the book report, so I'm going to talk about it for sure.
For 250 words.
So, I finally saw Solo.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it.
It's fun, man.
It's fun. And you know what's cool about it is that, I see why a lot of people don't, like my friend Sam hated it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And it was like, because it's not Han Solo. It's not like blah, blah, blah. Like, you just didn't feel it. But like, as critiquing it as like a film, and there's great dialogue. There's those, oh man, this is totally going to happen right now moments. But then it doesn't happen. The predictable thing does not happen in any of those moments. And I'm like, oh, nice little twist.
Yeah.
Oh, another twist.
And I think that guy does a good job of being Han Solo.
I think
mean, he has a nice charisma to him. I've never
does.
heard of him before.
Well, he's one of his first roles.
Yeah.
They had to have a
Oh, they didn't have
an
that
acting coach.
acting coach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was new to acting.
yeah.
I think he did a good job. One thing I really like about that movie is there's a couple scenes of like intense warfare,
Oh yeah.
and they're like really,
Like
they're like
war.
the grittiest Star Wars scenes ever.
Yeah.
It's like, man, Rogue One should have been this.
You know, and I will
Some
say
fluffy
this:
little
I
Seven
saw
Samurai fairy tale.
Rogue One again, and I've always said it. It's a story that does not need to be told, but I do like that droid.
K2SO.
Yeah.
Well, he's Alan Tiddick. How are you not gonna like Alan Tiddick?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I mean,
Man's delightful. He's from Texas.
I enjoyed it.
It's okay. Like, here's my big complaints about Rogue One. First off, Jyn Erso.
uh-huh.
It's a terrible performance from what's her face, whatever that actress is.
I can see that.
There's a part where she's giving like the speech to the
Yeah.
rebellion,
Oh yeah.
and it's like really, really bad.
Yeah.
Then you have the guy Mads Mikkelsen, who plays Jyn Erso's father.
Dude, he did not get enough screen time.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened to Bryan Cranston in Godzilla. They have this
Yeah.
super talented actor, and they give
Don't
him this little
utilize
baby
it.
role.
Yeah.
And they could have had the motivation be like, oh, they've taken him. We have to go get him back. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think the second half's filled with a bunch of unnecessary characters.
Yeah.
And-
oh yeah.
And then, like, Cassian Andor.
They're just trying to go as hard Star Wars.
But it's like, who cares about this guy?
Yeah.
His robot's way more interesting than this guy
Oh,
is.
so much more than his little French
Um,
accent in space.
Well, he's Mexican. He's the first, like, Mexican in Star Wars.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But you didn't even recognize your own, or well,
Yeah.
the dialogue of the city.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're just bland, man. They're all bland characters except for that droid. And then you have Polar Express Grand Moff Tarkin and
oh my gosh.
creepy
that's-
CGI Leia. And the Darth Vader scene,
Yeah.
everyone was like, "Oh, it's like, what is this, man?
Yeah.
Is this a
I did
Friday
like
the
that
13th
Vader
movie
scene,
for
though.
a second? I guess, but it doesn't match any of the tone of the entire movie.
No, it doesn't.
It's like
dude,
he's a slasher movie right at the end. It's ridiculous.
I finished whatever the new Star Wars game is called, Fallen Order.
Oh yeah.
Dude, when Vader shows up in that game,
Ooh. Oh, that's cool.
great stuff. Great stuff.
That's
like the
cool.
Vader I don't like Vader as a villain in the movies. I don't. I
Okay.
think he's wimpy. I've always thought Vader was like, I mean, it's Anakin. He's a wimp. He's a wuss.
Yeah,
like he doesn't
he
do
is.
anything to impress me.
He's a wuss.
But when you read the comics and see him in certain games, Vader's top dog.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's portrayed kind of differently in the movies. I can see that.
That's it. I just want to say that, and I will continue to say that episode 1, the Trade Federation scene in the beginning, is still one of the coolest parts of that movie.
Yeah.
But I rewatched episode 3, of course, too, and
Yeah.
that movie is so much more garbage than I remembered. And
Everyone always said back then, "Oh, it's the good one." That's what people always said.
out of the prequel trilogy,
Yeah.
no, I think it's.
It's pretty bad.
I mean, in a sense, sometimes Attack of the Clones is a little better than
Oh,
Revenge of the
God.
Sith.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah.
But I would put Phantom Menace, I think. I was rethinking my Star Wars list after we did the episode the other day. I feel like I put Force Awakens too low. I think I put it like below Solo. I just rewatched Force Awakens. That movie's delightful, everyone.
You know,
Force Awakens is a good time.
I was reading something that JJ was saying is that he's like, yeah, it's a lot like A New Hope and all this. He's like, but when we made it, it had been so long since any of these movies been made or looked at. I wanted it to feel nostalgic. I wanted to remind us why we like this universe.
Yeah.
So I made it nostalgic, and I wanted to make it that we see how history repeats itself.
It's like poetry,
and-
it rhymes.
Yeah.
It's like Doomsday Clock.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, I get it. I'm gonna rewatch it this week before I watch
Mhm.
because I'm gonna finish. I'm barely at A New Hope right now
Oh, man, you got work to do.
because I've watched 5 movies already. Yeah, it's
Man, it's a lot now to say, I'm going to watch all of Star Wars. Like when we were kids, it's like, I'm going to watch the trilogy.
yeah.
And now it's
Cool.
like, I'm going to watch 10 movies. No, 11.
It's like being like, I'm gonna watch all of the Marvel movies before the next one comes out.
Well, I did sort of do that. I watched all of them but it took me like a year. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
wasn't like cramming it in a month. That would have been crazy.
Doing all this in like a week and a half.
Yeah, that's insane. That's a
Brutal.
lot, dude. That is a lot. But you'll make it.
Oh,
It'll
yeah.
be worth it.
But
You know what though? You should maybe skip through the original trilogy for right now.
I want to watch it for delightful reasons. I'll
yeah,
clean
that's
in the
true.
background or something.
There you go.
You know, I used to work at a hotel as a server, and there are some nights it's a hotel. It's just not busy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I'd be there for 4 or 5 hours. So 16, 17-year-old me, I would replay A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back in my head while I was working. And that would kill like 3 hours of my shift, and I'd be
Interesting.
delighted.
Just playing through the whole movie.
Yeah. I had that whole thing to a T.
Yeah. I can see that actually.
Right? But there's one of my favorite scenes in those movies is when old man Obi-Wan is talking to Luke and talking about the history and the Clone Wars and Vader and all this stuff. And I'm like,
The Clown Wars.
I wish they would have like really stuck to what was being said there and crafted all this prequel stuff to what was being said, because they missed the mark. Because
Yeah.
when you look at how old Obi-Wan is in A New Hope compared to like Luke is what, like 19 or something?
Yeah, he's supposed to be 19 at the beginning. I knew.
Dude, at the end of episode 3, Obi-Wan does not look that old. He looks like in his 30s. That would put this old man Obi-Wan in like his 50s. 60s maybe.
Yeah, well, the desert really dries out your skin, man.
I
You have
guess
to have
so.
a good moisture care routine.
Yeah.
But I see what you mean. Alex Guinness seems like he's
Ancient.
Ancient.
Like 84 or something, you know? Like-
oh god. Yeah, I do have to agree with you. That means the timeline gets all messed up. That's what happens when you make a saga spanning over 50 years
yeah.
and you try and make it all connected when actors are aging in real time. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work out. Totally
Ridiculous.
right. And then I don't
They
know.
should just made Obi-Wan look older from episode 1 and go from there.
Yeah, just a little bit older.
He should just look like Qui-Gon in episode 1.
They should have just made Padme date someone appropriate for her age.
There you go. I was also looking at, we were talking about how bad a character Padme is, and I have to say that her death completely reflects her as a character, giving up the will to live.
That is so stupid too. She died of a broken heart.
I'm just like, you're a wimp.
What? What? Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't care about your kids?
Yeah, dude, you're
You
having
can't stay alive
twins.
for your twins?
What a wimp.
Oh, Anakin left me. Yeah, it's really lame.
That's my Star Wars rant.
Well, that's part of our pull list too, I guess, right? What else have you been doing? Anything else? New Watchmen show? Star Wars movies?
Star Wars movies. No, I started reading Donny Cates' Venom, and I think it's really cool how he gave Venom an origin story that
Mhm.
it was never. He's only been a character for about 30 years, so there's a lot to be, a lot of input to be said into the character.
Okay.
And spoilers for those of you who haven't read this comic that's been out for well over almost 2 years now.
Oh.
But the symbol on Venom's chest, it mimics the spider originally, but it's not a spider. It's a dragon. And it's this ancient
Oh, yeah,
species
tell me about this.
from like space and all this insanity. And I was like, dude, yes.
That's cool.
Super cool. I can't wait
Let's
to
get
read this
metal
stuff.
with it.
Yeah.
Let's get metal with it.
Yeah. Dude, it's a dragon. And then Venom gets these killer wings.
Wow.
And it's just, oh, so cool. Yeah.
Okay. I might have to check that out. I picked up that Absolute Carnage a while back, and
Oh, you got
I
that,
read a
yeah.
little bit of it, and then I saw that there was going to be all these spin-offs, and I was like, ugh,
Nah, you don't got to read any of them.
I'm not down.
There's like, I
Really?
picked up 2 of them just because it's the Venom storylines inside of it, but that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you don't got to.
Well, I have the first 2, so I'll have to check those out.
Yeah.
My pull list, I mean, I haven't really been reading anything. It's been a busy month, man.
Mhm.
December always sucks. So many concerts, so many performances. I'm going to be glad when this week's over, but, and the week ends with watching Star Wars, so hopefully it's not going to be a letdown.
Yeah, right?
But I have been playing Luigi's Mansion 3. I got Luigi's Mansion 3,
wow.
everybody, on the Switch. Woo! That's a good time.
Nice.
Catching ghosts has never been more fun. The whole thing's co-op, which is super exciting.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Nintendo's just been doing a lot of good multiplayer stuff. And then I was at Savers, everyone, I love bargain shopping. I love thrifting.
I need to go there. My gym I go to is right next to that
You
one.
should, dude. And I always check. I know exactly where the Savers people put the comic books. You know what I mean? It's like on the third shelf back in the bottom right. And I was looking over there. It's funny because I gave a bunch of comic books to Savers, and now my stuff is like in circulation.
Oh, nice.
So I was like digging through. I was like, wow, Django and Shade #1. Oh, there's like 20 of them. Oh, this is me. This is me getting rid of all these extra Django issues.
I use those for. You gave me like a stack of.
I gave you a
5 or
bunch, dude.
6,
I had I had like 50.
When I mail out
crazy.
comics, I use them as like an in-betweener to give some fluff between whatever I'm mailing.
Nice. And then they're like, oh, Django.
Yeah.
They had volume 1, the first 6 issues of Peter Panzerfaust, which is an Image comic book. It's like 26 issues long. I started picking up the book just because it's World War II. I love World War II. The art style is really nice. I started picking up the book at like issue 13 or something.
Oh, nice.
But I've never read it because it is like a continual story.
Ooh.
So I have the whole run, like 13 to 20, but I don't have the first like 12 issues.
Oh, that's cool. What a satisfying feeling getting
Yeah,
the
and I was
first
like,
6.
whoa, okay, cool. I can finally read this thing and see like how I feel about it. And Peter Panzerfaust, I read the back of the thing and I felt like such an idiot. It was like, obviously Peter Panzerfaust is based on Peter Pan.
Yeah.
It's like a telling of Peter Pan, but set in World War II.
I could see that.
And Peter Pan's like a soldier.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, duh. I can't believe that didn't like click in my head. This whole time I was just like, oh, a Panzerfaust. It's like a rocket propelled grenade launcher from World War II. That's what they're making this reference
That's the
of.
first thing I thought of when you told me about it.
I'm so dumb. But I'm
It's
going to read that
knowing
this week.
The Black Freighter was Cave Carson or whatever his name was.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Doomsday
Oh,
Clock.
yeah, for real. It's like it's even in black and white. Too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to read that and hopefully report back good things.
Nice.
But I guess up next, everyone, we're going to do once the Watchmen TV show is done.
It's already done.
Well, it's already done. Once we're caught up,
Yeah.
we'll have an episode for you next year.
Yeah.
See you next year, everyone.
We'll start off with Watchmen.
We'll start off with Watchmen. Right back where we started.
Yeah, and we'll go. This podcast has been going on for a little over a year, and we have 21, 22 episodes out. 22,
yeah, something like that, man.
And this is just 5 of them, 6 of them. Is this? No, 5 of them are Watchmen.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be our 21st.
Crazy.
Well, this will be our 21st. It'll be 22.
Crazy.
Let's bring it, man. Let's bring more Watchmen.
And we'll hit you up with some new books next year. We got to make a new list and go from there.
Yeah. Hit us with your requests now before we get crazy with the schedule that we can't keep up with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll figure it out.
Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for hanging out, David.
Yeah, thank you, man.
We got a bunch of peppers from Albertsons, like the big
Ooh.
bag of them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. $3 for a whole bag of peppers.
Mm. And that's how the episode ends.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Another one in the bag.
Good job, David.
Yeah. Good job, you, man.
Thank you.